Hello and welcome to one more episode of Prato, Casa. And today we're going to be making Chicharros Fritos, or like it's commonly known in Portugal, Chicharros Fritos.
Prato da Casa.
This lovely little specimen here is the one we're going to be using. Now, if you go to Newport, you can get these already cleaned and ready to fry. But just in case you want a lesson, they're quite quick. All you do is you put your finger in its mouth and you pull. Make sure you don't dislocate the head. And you're going to rip that part of the mouth down to the belly, and everything sort of just slides out. Now, after you take out its guts, you want to just make sure it's nice and clean. And there you go. The inside of the fish should look like so. Simple. How are we going to powder these guys? We're going to use corn flour. Now, I'm using the Bell Farm brand here, and it's very much typical to the region of the Azores and the way it would have been done back in the Azores way back in the day, or maybe the way your vovó made it. So I use one hand to flour and the other hand to then just place it there. This is just to try to keep it as dry as possible in the flour. So pick up the wet fish with one hand and flour with the other. Now make sure you get the flour nice on the inside, but you don't want any clumps, so shake it off afterwards. Now chicharros are eaten all over Portugal. They're an easy to find fish, very cheap back home, and honestly pretty affordable here. However, they do go by different names, so jequitinhos, mackerel, and like I said, carapau before. All depending on their size, where they're from, and depending where you're from in Portugal. And there we go. All our fish are nicely breaded. Try to get some of that excess flour off because you don't want it in your oil. The flour really just helps keep the fish together, crisps it up, and adds some extra flavor. I'm sure way back then it was also meant to add some extra calories. So they're not just ready yet, but you can see them. They're still a little yellow. We want to get them a little brownish, not too crispy, because we still want them to be moist on the inside, but we do want some more color. The frying time is about 10 minutes, but keep a close eye. It really depends on the temperature of your oil. Okay, so they're looking just about right, nice and crisp. As you take them out, I like to put them on a plate with a napkin. Just absorb that oil, but make sure you try to get as much oil as you can back into the frying pan. Now, these typically aren't eaten warm, so we're gonna let them settle down for a bit. For this recipe, we're gonna make something called a molho vilão, which is a very typical Açorian sauce used for these sort of dishes. And it's a simple recipe made with wine, lemon, garlic, pimento paste, and vinegar. Let's get started. So we're gonna take some garlic. I recommend about 5 to 6 cloves, depending on the size. And we're gonna chop it up finely. So I do like to break my garlic just to get the skins off a little bit easier. It really does help with the peeling process. You can see they just kind of slip right off. Now, if you're not Açorian and you're watching me make the sauce, you're gonna probably be amazed at how red it is and spicy. And this is very particular to Açorian cuisine, especially the cooking styles of São Miguel, which is one of the bigger of the 9 islands. Now, I like my garlic nice and thin, but you can make it a little bit bigger. It's totally up to you. The idea is that it's all over the gravy, because this is what's going to marinate, or this is what's going to season our fish. Now, these ingredients are very simple, as you can tell, and these are usually just ingredients that everybody had at home back then, right? People would have a lemon tree in their backyard. They'd have their own pepper paste, their own peppers, their own garlic, and obviously, you know, what Portuguese home didn't have? Wine. However, in the Azores, we'd use something called vinho de cheiro, which is a distinct sort of Açorian wine, very red, very pigmented, and very robust in flavor. We want this on a low heat. We're gonna add some olive oil, pretty much roughly about 2 tablespoons. Already here it's sizzling. We do want to keep mixing it up. Keep the heat on low. This is important, or we'll burn the garlic. Now, what I like to add to the sauce is something called pimenta salgada. And now, you know, You can pick these up at Newport. They're a little bit hard to find. They are peppered, preserved, and salt. Now, you should really wash out the salt before you use it. So not only is this used in assorted cooking, this type of pepper, but it's also used as a garnish on top of foods. And we'll throw some on top of the dish afterwards. And Assortants do like their food spicy. So I'll throw that into our garlic mix there and let it saute. And when everything is nice and cooked, we'll add the rest of the seasonings to our sauce. So when our sauce is nice and sauteed, we're gonna add our pimento paste, or our pasta pimenta, pasta or miligata, however you wanna call it. I'd say roughly about a tablespoon, a little bit more. Mix it in, and we're gonna add our 1/4 cup of wine. Now, if you don't like the red color, feel free to use white wine. I use red wine just to be a little bit more traditional, right? Because that's typically what you'd find in a Portuguese household. We're gonna add some lemon juice to this. We want this to be ultra lemony. And it's okay if you get the seeds in there. You're only gonna be dipping the fish. You're not gonna be eating this with a spoon. We're gonna add just a bit of vinegar to the recipe. Roughly about a tablespoon. And finally, some fresh parsley. Now make sure you break away the stems. Nobody wants to eat parsley stems. And we're gonna chop it up finely to throw it into our gravy. And there you have it. Let it cook for about another 2 minutes. Let that parsley really, absorb into the sauce. And when it's done, find a bowl to put it in and it's ready to serve. And there you have it. Chicharros fritos com molho de vilão, a moda suriana. Garnish it with a little bit of parsley on top. Make it look nice and cute. And everything you need to make this recipe can be easily picked up at Newport. Let's try it. Just like Vovó used to make it. Enjoy.
Prato da Casa.